independent in thought and punk rock in life. It's The Chad Benson Show.
It's the final countdown.
Special Counsel Robert Mueller has completed the Russia investigation and delivered his report to the Justice Department. Mueller, appointed by the Deputy Attorney General back in May 2017 after the firing of FBI Director James Comey, is charged to determine if Russians conspired to interfere in our election, if President Trump or anyone in his campaign joined that conspiracy, and if President Trump obstructed justice by interfering with the investigation.
Here it is. People in D.C. and around America who sit around their televisions all day watching Fox and MSNBC and CNN, waiting, anticipating the Democrats, drooling, waiting for the opportunity now to impeach the president. It is over. They've got him. Wait till all these other indictments flow in. People that are really close to him are going to be going to jail forever. Could be son-in-law. Could be son. But wait. Maybe not.
No more indictments coming from the special counsel. But remember, the special counsel has referred prosecutions to the Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. There could be further indictments coming from there, but nothing more coming from the special counsel. They will close shop, ending a pivotal chapter in this investigation.
There you go. And nobody cares. The Southern Court of New York could come after some of them, but it's going to be for things that had zero to do with that big C word. No, not that word, and definitely not that word. Collusion. Collusion, collusion, collusion. That's it. There you go. There you go. 2 years. 2 years. That is 1 year, and then they add another year. That's 2 years. This has been going on. 2 years. Trump is now probably sitting around with a smile on his face, laughing a little bit, thinking, maybe this is maybe we got ourselves a situation here where we can pop a little champagne. Is it totally over? No. Could it politically, in certain situations, kind of somewhat be embarrassing? It's possible. I don't know if Trump has that in him. But the reality is we may never find out any of these things that we think we're going to find out, or we may find out everything. Because now that Barr has it, it is going to be potentially 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks before we find out anything. One thing we do know is things will get leaked. Absolutely.
Attorneys for President Trump, Jay Sekulow and Rudy Giuliani, said in a short statement that they're pleased that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has delivered his report to the Attorney General, and now it's up to William Barr to determine, quote, the next appropriate steps. Barr has said he'll provide as much transparency as possible. President Trump said this week he wouldn't mind if the report was released to the public, saying, quote, let it come out, let people see it. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
There she goes. She knows. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but let's be honest here. This has been a thorn in the side for the president since before he took office, when he was president-elect, all the way through until now. This thing is hanging over him. And it has, whether he wants to say it or not, he's been frustrated, and there's been an apparent anger at times of the president towards not only the Mueller report and the Democrats, but also the people that he appointed in certain positions who he felt did not protect him.
Practically every day, there has been a steady drumbeat of outrage from this president since day one, since this investigation was launched 22 months ago, really to the point of obsession. You know, the New York Times says that President Trump has blasted and publicly attacked the Russia investigation, Mueller's investigation, nearly 1,100 times. Those attacks in recent months have become angrier. They have become more frequent. They have become more personal. He talked about it in his State of the Union. He used profanity when talking about it to a group of conservatives recently.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to come out of this. I don't know what we're going to see, right? That's going to be up to, there's going to be a lot of different things because we're going to see some stuff. We may not see some stuff. It is going to be up to Barr himself. And I'm sure the president and other people that have talked about this even people on the left saying, look, there are going to be people named inside of here that they investigated, that there may be some embarrassing things that they're going to redact and make sure that they're not hurt and in any way, shape, or form suffer any kind of public shaming or humility or anything like that. So there's going to be some stuff for sure redacted. But what else?
After 22 months, one of the most consequential investigations in modern history, really since Watergate, is now coming to a close. And a confidential report detailing the special counsel's work is now in the hands of Attorney General William Barr, who has some huge decisions to make. Namely, how much of Robert Mueller's report can be turned over to Congress? How much can be made public? We've just been informed that Barr has sent that letter to Congress notifying leaders that Mueller has completed the work and that Barr will begin reviewing the report and deciding what can be released.
Yeah. And that is him that is going to make that right there. That decision will be his. The Democrats have already saying we want it all out, we want it all out, we want it all out, we want it all out. You have to protect some names in there. Their hope is, worst case scenario, is they will have enough in there that's going to embarrass the president. Probably, if there's no more indictments. If there's no more indictments coming, meaning if there is nobody close to the president, his son, Jared Kushner, if there's nobody really close to the president that is getting popped for any kind of conspiracy or collusion, you don't have anything, right? And that's what this was about. He spoke to Maria Bartiromo today talking about his frustration of this.
Think of it. I have a deputy appoints a man to write a report on me to make a determination on my presidency. People will not stand for it. Now, with all of that being said, for 2 years we've gone through this nonsense because there's no collusion with Russia. You know that better than anybody. And there's no obstruction. They'll say, oh, well, wait, there was no collusion. That was a hoax. But he obstructed in fighting against the hoax.
I even started hearing last night, right, as this thing started getting closer and closer, and we talked about it earlier today, is you can start to tell when these kind of things are wrapping up, because when you bring a group of people together, what ends up happening is when you start to see the people that have stuck around for the entire time peeling off and going back to their old jobs or taking new positions, that's when you know it's coming to a close. And as that started to happen and you started to hear rumblings or not hear rumblings of more indictments, then the Democrats came out, and I saw last night on several channels where they're like, I don't even know if we can trust Bob Mueller.
I'm sure he wishes it hadn't taken this long, but at the same time, I don't ascribe to the view that he's anything other than, an honorable, diligent professional of supreme character.
Yeah, there you go. And I think that to be true. I would have said no matter which way it goes, everybody I know that has worked with him in the past, even in working at other agencies, has all said that this guy is above board, across the board. He's above board. And, that word and that phrase, witch hunt, was out there a ton and still is for a lot of people on Trump's side, still is sitting right there because they felt this entire thing was just a complete made up way to replay, redo, and try to reposition that election and that night in November.
I don't share the view that it was a witch hunt or a hoax, but I do think Bob did his job honorably, and I think he did it in his characteristically deliberative and professional way.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens now. What's going to come out of it? Could take 4 weeks, could take 6 weeks, could take 2 months. We may see some stuff. We may not see everything. We may see the entire thing, every inch of it, minus a few names here and there. We just don't know. And now what you're going to get is the 24-hour news cycle is going to become 24 minutes. And they're going to be talking about this. They're going to be talking about that. And they're going to be speculating like it's it's what's inside the box. What's inside the box in that movie Seven? Remember that? Like, what was inside the box? Oh, they're going to talk about it. What's inside Capone's safe? Geraldo. And when it finally was open, it was wah, 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 wah.
If you actually read the regulations, it says the Attorney General may determine that public release of these reports would be in the public interest to the extent that release would comply with applicable legal restrictions. So it's basically saying it's in the hands of the Attorney General to decide whether A, it's in the public interest, and then B, are there any legal hurdles to overcome here?
Yeah. Is it in the public interest? I think in some ways it's absolutely in the public interest. Right? Do I need to know every single thing about everything? No. And here's something else to take into account. If you don't like Trump and you believe Trump is guilty, this here is not going to change any of that. You'll think that Mueller was compromised and that this thing is a bunch of baloney, right? And that we're not getting the entire story. If you believe that Trump is innocent and there's a bunch of stuff in there that points to, you could definitely draw the conclusion that he's done some wrongdoing and he knew exactly what he was doing, then you then will say that's a bunch of crap, that Mueller was compromised and the whole thing was flawed. And let's not forget, no matter what takes place and comes out of this from here on out, even if Trump comes out of this completely unscathed, which looks more and more like that's going to happen, he's going to spend the next 2 years fighting the Democrats left, right, and center with every kind of investigation you can come up with. That is not going to change at all. His fight in many ways is now, he's trained, he's done the road work, he's had all the practice. Now he's getting into the ring. And I think he's good with that. I do. He's a fighter. In saying that, though, what say you? No more indictments? Looks like everything else, for all intents and purposes, is put to bed. And, it's now, what are we going to see? What are we not going to see? Do you think the entire report should be released? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Love hearing from you. Big day. Friday. Mueller Friday. That's actually always trends on Fridays because Mueller tends to do stuff on Friday because a lot of what happens is you release it on a Friday. It's quiet. It gives people the weekend to soak it up, to study it, to look at it, to get their thoughts together. They can go on the talking head shows Sunday morning, get it out there, and then away we go, and it builds up again. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Well, if nothing comes out of this, I bet you Trump will probably want to sleep easy. He should get himself some Giza sheets from MyPillow. Oh, kids. Boom. These are incredible sheets, by the way. They are. I got another pair sitting right here. I'm going to take them home, wash them tonight, use them. They're so awesome. Giza sheets. This cotton they grow, small area, Mediterranean. 100% after that, made right here in the USA. It's washable and dryable cotton that is incredible. So amazing. It really is. And it fits every bed. They're so deep, those pockets. Breathable, absolutely incredible sheets. Now's your chance to get some Giza sheets. They're cotton sheets like no other. Call MyPillow now. 800-983-4975 or go to MyPillow.com. That's 800-983-4975 or visit MyPillow.com. When you do use promo code Benson, that is promo code Benson. MyPillow.com, promo code Benson. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter, ChadBenson. Big day, big day. The release. Now what? Chad Benson Show.
Deep state? No. Deep doo-doo? Yeah. The Chad Benson Show.
Do you anticipate, Ty, that we will see any criminal charges against President Trump?
No.
Because he can't be, or because there's nothing there?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both.
I think it's more, there's really nothing there. Remember, it's not what you know in life, it's what you can prove. Anybody who's a prosecutor will tell you that over and over again. Could there be something if you reach and you got the right jury for something that you might be able to get him on? But as far as the collusion side of things, does it even rise to the level of crime? Is it high crimes and misdemeanors? I mean, are we at that point? Probably no. I would say almost certainly no. So what does that mean? Doesn't mean that he didn't have some contact potentially. doesn't mean that you could draw a line into certain situations and you can let your imagination run from there. But the reality is even if you did that, could you actually prove it in such a way that you could go on and impeach him? No. And if you're not getting his son and Kushner, who are the ones who had that Trump Tower meeting that everybody pointed at as the smoking gun, if you're not getting them, then the chances of you getting Donald are slim to none. The Donald, maybe he's a little Teflon Donnie, right? Maybe. I don't know. Now, how fast is the question? Because, well, it's been there. Barr will release little bits and pieces, but eventually Congress wants to see something, and apparently he wants to do it ASAP.
In terms of the conclusions, what he's making a distinction here that, look, in terms of the overall details of the report, there may be much of that I need to keep out of the public view. But in terms of his basic conclusions, some of that I can make known to the public very soon.
Yeah. In fact, we will probably be hearing about some of it over the weekend because he may get some of this stuff to Congress as early as this weekend, and we go from there, right? Like, that's just it. We go from there. It doesn't mean, and it means nothing. If you're the Democrats, none of this means anything because he was just the person delivering a message. What they were going to do with that message was either go after him potentially with an impeachment, and if that message wasn't the message that they thought, well, we can use this against him, then we're going to investigate him in other ways.
Short of the full report and the underlying evidence, Democrats have made very clear here that they are not going to be satisfied, and they're going to use every tool at their disposal to try and get this information. That includes subpoenas. That includes possibly bringing Mueller himself up here to testify, and it could include going to court to try and get some of that underlying evidence.
Yeah. But if Mueller goes and testifies, I don't know. If you're already at the point where you don't believe anything this guy says or thinks that some way, shape, or form that he has been breached and that it's crazy. This is where they have to be smart and calculated, but not overreaching because it could cost them. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet us. A lot of stuff to get today. We're going to try to squeeze it all in. Our bucket is full, but Mueller has delivered the report. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Stocks are racing their gains for the week on Friday as investors pulled money out of the stock market and into bonds and other low-risk assets. The shift comes following the Fed's warning this week about slowing foreign economies, weighing down the U.S. economy. All S&P sectors fell, led by basic materials. Dow DuPont fell 3.6%. Industrial goods, financial, and tech stocks also took on losses. The Dow closed down 460 points. The Nasdaq lost 196, and the S&P lost 54.
And why people should care about that? First of all, your 401k and everything's there. But secondly, as the world and global economy becomes more tied together, of slowing of that could eventually slow us. On top of that, now I think a lot of people on Fridays, especially bigger investors, institutional ones, have been worried about, as it gets closer to the investigation and coming to an end, of pulling themselves and getting them to the side in cash or putting it in places where they don't feel they have to worry about anything, because one thing the market likes is stability. And if you are a Democrat running in 2020, you're already screaming and yelling, we need to see this report. It needs to be made public. But on top of that, as much as you hope there's stuff inside of that report that could potentially damage beyond repair his chance to win a second term, you have to ask yourself, if that's not there, what else is really going to be the thing that we need to pay attention to. And you could social justice the hell out of your world all you want, but the average American still votes somewhat with their pocketbook, about 70%-ish, right? Like, oh, yeah. So you're kind of hoping, well, as much as I don't want to. And none of the politicians will say this. Bill Maher said it about a month or two ago, that the best thing that you can hope for is that there is a recession if nothing else is found out. It's the best thing that you can hope for. Because then they'll look at Trump and say, it's been a reality television show from top to bottom. Not all of that is your fault, but some of it is your fault. And on top of that, now the market's taken a dumper and the economy slowed down. So you got to go. You got to go. We'll see. We'll see. You got to figure out what you're going to do. You do. And if you're Trump, though, I think you got a smile on your face. Earlier today, before this was released to Barr, before Mueller turned in his report, Ari Melberg and Dan Abrams were talking about this.
If no one else is indicted by Mueller and the president, and there is no in-depth report on presidential misconduct, isn't that a big win for the president?
If Bob Mueller does not indict Americans for collusion or conspiring with the Russians, that means after this extensive probe, he didn't find chargeable evidence for collusion. Given that Donald Trump has been saddled with that in political and legal terms for his entire presidency thus far, that is a huge win.
And it looks like it's a huge win because what we're hearing is no more indictments. And that includes his son and Jared. Now, it could go to the Southern District. They may have found something there. And one of the things that has been happening is as he investigates the Mueller, or as he did investigate.
What Bob Mueller had been doing is passing off other investigations to other jurisdictions like the Southern District of New York, the Eastern District of Virginia. And so those cases are still ongoing, specifically the Southern District of New York, which actually has the most, was doing the Michael Cohen investigation.
Yeah. But remember, those guys, Michael Cohen and Manafort, those guys are going to jail for tax evasion, for lying. And last week, which was totally skipped over by pretty much everybody in the media, both sides of the aisle, if you will, of the media, was the fact that they were looking at Cohen for years for his taxi medallion scam that he was doing. And then they found many other things. So if you're going to get him for, or this person for lying, and that person over there for tax evasion, and this person for lying on documents, and there's nobody close to the president that's going to be indicted, you have to say that's a victory. You absolutely have to say that's a victory for the president. And now what? Well, investigation after investigation. The Democrats have been saying that the minute they took control of the House, it was going to be investigation after investigation. They're going to go after his taxes. They want to find out everything they can. And it's not always to catch him like a la Al Capone. We can't get him for this. We can't get him for that. So we can't get him for murder. We can't get him for racketeering, right? We can't get him for all of this other stuff over here. But you know what we can't get him for? Tax evasion. And their thought process is if we can't get him for anything, can we weaken him? Can we embarrass him? Can we make him look bad to his base? So when 2020 comes along, there won't be even a second thought of whether or not, or first thought or any thought, a third thought or fourth thought. Should I? Nope, I'm just not voting for him.
People, frankly, failed to do their homework in assuming that there was going to be something having been delivered, as it were, to the people from the summit of Mount Sinai. It just was never in the cards. Never in the cards. That right there, Ken Starr. We'll see. We'll see what takes place. But it's in. And now the speculation and the battle can start, and that's what this thing is going to be. It's going to be an absolute battle to find out what we see, what we don't see,
It's and the speculation. Oh my God, I can't even imagine the speculation. My speculation today has been, how bad can my bracket look? This is what it was like last night. Here's a perfect example off this topic of craziness onto some other real craziness when it comes to topics. Last night, Phil and I, late at night, are texting each other about a college basketball game where he and I we had to look up where Wofford was. Whatever Wofford. We couldn't even find it. We were so I can't believe. And today, UCI goes and screws up my damn bracket because I had Kansas State going deep into the tournament and they just jacked the pooch there. How's your one looking there, Phil? Is the wheel come off your bus fast? Wah, wah, wah. I will say on one side of the bracket, right, the east and the west side, I've missed on one. It's the other side, and losing Kansas State is not helping me. I am currently ranked, according to ESPN's Tournament Challenge, 5.2 million people are ahead of me. Now, I'm probably tied with about 4.5 million people, but if you were to ask my rank right now, 5.2 is their rank. That is my rank. In a little bit, we get to see the guy that is going to be the number one overall draft pick play. I can't wait to see that. Zion Williamson. God, to be that kid. How awesome is that? Just awesome. I mean, I was good. I was good enough to go to Europe and to bang around in lower leagues and stuff like that in soccer. But I had some friends who played at a decent level, but we weren't, as Americans, we were nowhere near where we're seeing Americans now. And I think to myself, God, how awesome would it be to be 18 years old and to have everything in front of you, it's at your fingertips. It's just, it's whether you're a pro soccer player or a singer or an actor or any of these things, it's all right in front of you. That's got to be awesome. That has got to be awesome. It does. Here you and I, Phil, are watching University of California at Irvine with a bunch of guys who are going to be coders and accountants next year, eliminate Kansas State, and we're pissed about it. We don't even know why. I've actually been on the campus of UCI. This is the college, though. I want to remind you guys what college this is. This is the college that a few years ago wanted to get rid of the American flag because it made people from foreign countries uncomfortable. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. What do you think today? What do you think about now that the Mueller report's in, now that there's not going to be any more indictments, at least coming from Bob Mueller? Do you want to see it? How much, granted, as they go through all of this stuff, they're going to be looking at everything, trying to find out what they can and can't show across the board, because there's a lot of that. But you want to see it. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like now, even though there's no more indictments now, that okay, he's vindicated, he can move forward now, that this isn't going to be hanging over his head? As for me, it's going to be, God knows how long. I think we'll get enough in Barr's opening delivery to Congress to, the jousting will begin. But I just don't think that there's anything here, any real thing here that is going to upend him. And if you're now, if you're looking at 2020, which is the Democrats, you're hoping that, okay, let's get to these investigations. Let's find out everything we can. Let's get those damn tax records. Let's find out if Russia has something on him. Because even if we can't get what we want out of Mueller, we can at least draw some sort of line. But who are you pleasing at that time? All you're doing is reinforcing people who already believe he's guilty and their thought process. You're not going to change this. And I think the base is going to have a smile on their face tonight, even though the entire report or any of the reports really not out, minus a few blurbs here and there about no more indictments. That's and the funny thing is, if you're running in 2020 as a Democrat, what do you say now? You want this thing to come out, but how do you take it? Because you're feeling like maybe it was going to be a race between, your side, and then the thought process was you were going to get there and it would be kind of almost a walkover because either Trump would have dropped out or potentially you could be running against Pence or who knows what. And now you're like, okay, well, I'm going to face a battle-hardened guy. I saw somebody yesterday, which I thought was very interesting. She was at a rally with Beto, and she says, I really like him. I like his presence. She goes, he's short on a lot of stuff, details-wise and policy-wise, but I like how he is. And he goes, I like Elizabeth Warren. She said, I like Elizabeth Warren and all of the policy stuff she has, but I won't vote for her because on stage she has no chance. And that's a lot of what voters are looking for is, I may like your policies, but you on stage against Trump, you have no chance. So now who's the person, personality-wise, that has a chance on stage against Trump? And if he comes out all of this unscathed, and it was Bannon yesterday in Italy said, if he survives the next 6 months and there's nothing here, he's going to win easy. And he may even win the popular vote along the way, which I don't know about that. And I still think the economy will. He could come out of all of this clean as a whistle. Just totally clean as a whistle. And they could find his tax return, find out he's worth $3 billion and he's paid all his taxes and he's taken no loans from anybody. And the economy could take an absolute dump and people go, we're going to go elsewhere. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at us. Car Shield is amazing. I drive a lot. You know how much I drive? Too much. But I don't worry about it. I take good care of my car. But the reality is when I have Car Shield, I sleep a little easier knowing that if something happens, I got somebody that's going to help me with covered repairs. I pay a tiny deductible and away I go. They get them paid directly. I already know who my mechanics are. They'll handle everything, and I don't have to worry about taking to some fly-by-night shop that just wants to get me out the door and doesn't really care if the car lasts much more than a mile. Not with Car Shield. 24/7 roadside assistance. You take the car where you want. They give you a rental car while your car's in the shop. Future car repairs may cost you thousands, but when you got Car Shield, not so much. That's what they're about. Check out carshield.com. Look at all the plans they got, which one's right for you. When you do sign up, make sure you use my code Benson. You're going to save yourself 10%. Carshield.com, code Benson, or call 800-CAR-6100. That's 800-CAR-6100. Mention code Benson. A deductible may apply. At Chad Benson Show, Twitter, ChadBenson. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show, where we reach across the aisle and occasionally poke someone in the eye.
Crazy. Dropping it on the Friday, the Mueller report. You got nothing to do this weekend, you can always head out to the movies. Couple big ones are opening. One in particular, one big movie is opening this weekend that is going to dominate. And it's kind of creepy. And it's from a guy we know him as a funny guy, but he apparently likes horror movies and mysteries.
They look exactly like us.
It's Us versus everyone at the box office this weekend, and Us is looking at a big opening. The horror thriller from Jordan Peele, his follow-up to Get Out, should debut in first place, earning perhaps $40 million or more, maybe even $50 million. Reviews have been great, and there's a lot of anticipation. Us is the only movie opening across the country this weekend.
Yeah, a couple other movies are opening, and if you're in a big city, you can see them. Hotel Mumbai, which looks really, really good about the attack and how a guy that worked at the hotel helped a lot of people, and it's that looks really, really good. It stars, what's his name, Dev Patel. Is that the guy from Slumdog Millionaire, I think? So that looks pretty good. But this movie looks great, and sometimes you just want to get away from all this crazy politics and whatnot. And this is, if you like creepy movies, and it's an interesting thing with him because you've got a guy in Jordan Peele who did Get Out, which was amazing, right? And now he's done this movie Us, which looks amazing. And on, I think, Rotten Tomatoes, it's getting a 99 or 100. It looks great. But here's a guy who is, well, he's a comedy dude, right? Like, he is just a funny comedy dude, and he is. I'm very interested to see how this thing goes. I mean, is this what he does now? It's like that was that his thing as a kid? Like, I'm funny, but I want to be scary too. I like that. I like that a lot. Funny and scary, still the hardest things to do in all of entertainment when it comes to movies. If you can scare people, legit scare people, that's great. And if you can really make people laugh, that's awesome. And those are the two toughest things. Drama's easy. Everything else is tough. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. For the first time in history, more people are streaming than cable. Think about that. 600 plus million people worldwide have some sort of streaming service. Cable's down in the 500 million range, 580 or something. It's only going to get further and further apart. Cable has got to figure something out soon. And I don't know if they're going to be able to. And what did you say, Phil? Who is it that's going to do their own streaming-like service?
Comcast.
Comcast is going to become like that.
A Roku-type device.
Yeah, they got to figure out something. You got to be. You can decide. You can either get on the train, or you can get run over. There's no stepping to the side and see what's the next one like. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Mueller report in the hands of AG Barr. What will happen? What won't happen? Who knows how much we'll learn over the weekend and what Congress will or won't get. The battle has just begun. Speculation, though. We could start that right now. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
It's the final countdown.
Special Counsel Robert Mueller has completed the Russia investigation and delivered his report to the Justice Department. Mueller, appointed by the Deputy Attorney General back in May 2017 after the firing of FBI Director James Comey. His charge, to determine if Russians conspired to interfere in our election, if President Trump or anyone in his campaign joined that conspiracy, and if President Trump obstructed justice by interfering with the investigation.
It's the final countdown. Now, what happens, you ask yourself? Mueller, the evil, mad Mueller, the man that looks a lot like Herman Munster. What happens from here? Well, pretty simple. Barr, old William Barr, he takes it. He peruses it. This weekend, he is going to try to get through as much as he can, and he said as early as this weekend, he will have, like, cliff notes to Congress. Like, that's the goal this weekend. So this is what I picture, right? So it gets delivered, right? And you see it get delivered there. I saw today, like, the speculation was growing in and around D.C. They showed Mueller, and he had his hat on like he was going to go fishing, taking his dog Blue out to the lake so he can get away from everything. And I picture Barr's got it. He's going to go home, right? He's probably cruising home right now. He's going to sit down. He's going to put his feet up, watch a little bit of the basketball game. He's going to have his glasses down around his nose, his feet on the ottoman, sitting in one of those leather chairs, right? Drinking a highball. Seems like a whiskey or highball drinker. He's going to go through it all. And then he's going to write up some sort of report with his assistants, and he'll send it out to the powers that be. And, we go from there. The question is, that's Congress. That's the Department of Justice. What about us?
If there's significant classified information in the report, or if there is materials that would be subject to executive privilege, or if there are content that is critical or adverse to uncharged individuals, obviously, there are regulations that prohibit the Justice Department from making disclosures of that type.
Okay, so that's that type of stuff. That right there is that type of stuff. So stuff that, we shouldn't be knowing about and stuff that could potentially harm people and their public reputation, we don't need to know that stuff. I'm totally good with that. But what about us? What about us little people? Right? What about us tiny people? Just the average human being. What about us? We want to know, are we ever going to see the damn thing?
Despite the president's wishes, that does not mean the report will be public. Here's what the Attorney General, William Barr, said at his confirmation hearings about that.
As I said in my statement, I am going to make as much information available as I can, consistent with the rules and regulations that are part of the special counsel regulations.
That answer does not mean the report is necessarily going to be public.
It's going to be public. Some of it. I think Congress may see a little bit more because they'll be privy to stuff like that. But I think the reality is we're going to see enough. We're going to see enough of it that will help people who maybe are in the, on the fence about all of this stuff, kind of maybe make up their mind. But the big thing here is, right? This is something I want people to understand. The big thing in this is everybody's worried. Well, because we've heard there's got to be more indictments. I mean, even as early as this morning, right? As early as this morning, you have all the talking head people, right? Here's John Dean, former White House Nixon counsel, talking about, oh, this thing's going to go on forever, and this is just the beginning of blah, 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 blah. And then they talked about, it's hey, there's got to be some more indictments.
But I think more indictments are coming, and I think they'll be broad-based, and there'll be a general conspiracy indictment that'll pull a lot of this together. It'll be speaking indictments.
So a lot of this together, more indictments. He hands it in today. Department of Justice?
No more indictments coming from the special counsel, but remember, the special counsel has referred prosecutions to the Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. There could be further indictments coming from there, but nothing more coming from the special counsel. They will close shop, ending a pivotal chapter in this investigation.
Yeah, so that's it. That's it. No more indictments, at least not from the counsel, the special counsel, Bob Mueller. So with no more indictments, it's the now what scenario. What happens from here on out? Well, for the last month plus, because of the inability of Washington, D.C. to act like an adult, the reality is they've known that nothing's coming. Doesn't mean there's not things in there that you can say, that looks really suspicious, but you could also explain it away. I couldn't prove that in a court of law, so I can't prove that without a reasonable doubt that would say you. So doesn't mean there's not that, right? So if you're the Democrats, you continue to do what you've done. Over the last several days, I've seen, I don't know if we could trust Mueller. Over the last several days, I've heard it doesn't matter what's in this report because we've got a lot of other investigation, and that has been their plan all along. You can't leave it to Mueller to get you. So you got to do other things. And if that other things happens to be taxes, if that other things happens to be whatever it is, we'll do it. We'll do it. Trump probably feels good about it. Today, he was talking with Maria Bartiromo about this entire situation.
Think of it. I have a deputy appoints a man to write a report on me to make a determination on my presidency. People will not stand for it. Now, with all of that being said, for 2 years we've gone through this nonsense because there's no collusion with Russia. You know that better than anybody. And there's no obstruction. They'll say, oh, well, wait, there was no collusion. That was a hoax. But he obstructed in fighting against the hoax.
So there you go. He was frustrated. He's got to have a little bit of a smile on his face because nobody's getting charged that's close to him. And myself, I personally thought if anybody was going to be charged, it wasn't going to be Trump. It was going to be Trump Jr. It was going to be Jared Kushner. It was going to be somebody close enough to him that it would make it so hard for him in so many ways. But no. Looks like that seems to be put to bed. Now it's what will come of this. The politicking has begun, and the speculation will begin. And the people on the right will draw you a line everywhere to talk a bit about deep state, and they will show you what an overreach it was, and they'll talk about how the president came out unscathed, and the people on the left will start to draw you a picture, paint by numbers, to show you how this person colluded with that person, and because it's tough to prove that, though you could totally see how if you paint this picture and you look at it sideways, that it is easily a situation where he and the Russians colluded. It's really up to the average person with their common sense to go, yeah. We know that they played a game. Let's be real. Obama knew they were playing a game. Didn't do anything. Trump brought that up. Several people have brought that up. Knew beforehand, but thought, well, she's going to win, so whatever. Adam Schiff has already come out and said, yeah, I think I'm going to have to subpoena Mueller. He is smarmy looking, isn't he, Adam Schiff? He looks like one of those character actors. You're like, oh, I hope you get your ass kicked at the end of the movie. Could be the nicest human being you've ever met. I don't know. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet us. Very interesting stuff happening with Boeing. And it is, first of all, the black box. Let's talk about that. Not the band. 80s, 90s band. Very cool. Different black box.
The Ethiopians for 5 days have had the data from the black box of the crash, the second crash of a 737 MAX. If there is data that says something is wrong, we need to know, us and the flying public, or why would you want to get onto this aircraft? And they have not released one shred of evidence one way or the other as to whether or not that plane went down in Ethiopia a week ago Sunday because of pilot error, because there's something inherently wrong with this aircraft. Boeing has a software fix for the first crash. Well, what about the second crash? The Ethiopians still have told us nothing.
Boeing has already lost a $5 billion order from Indonesia. That is the big worry now. The more that I hear about some of this stuff, the more that I start to think, were the people not trained correctly in some of these countries? Although experts are coming out now and saying there is some issues potentially here with the software and the handling of the airplane, making it potentially tougher to fly. But I also think that when all is said and done, you're going to get two reports. You're going to get the report that they're going to come out of Europe and Ethiopia, and you're going to get a report here. Neither of them will probably be great for Boeing, but one will be damning. And this is just my speculation. And I think the other one will be, for all of that, our pilots didn't really have the same kind of issues because they were trained correctly and they were more experienced. And inexperience cost people lives. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Still yelling at UCI. For all the talk of Mueller, for all the talk of all this stuff, what do I have on in the background? Basketball. I don't know why. I watched it. It's, you know what it is? It's when you think of student athletes tonight, you could, like, right now, Duke, you know, you've got Zion Williamson, you've got all these guys are playing, and it's amazing. They're all going to be number one picks, and it's fun to watch, right? It's fun to watch. It is, but it is fun to watch guys that they're playing in the dance, right? Like, this is a memory. Like, it's why you go do these things, and you play in college, and your dream one day you're playing in the dance. That's crazy. You got to love that kind of stuff. I remember when I was playing for, I think it was Wokingham Town in England, which is like the lower tier. And I played in the FA Cup. Like, wow. Wow, it's crazy. And the FA Cup over there is essentially their big, it's a tournament that every team in England, from the Park League team on a Saturday and Sunday to the biggest team, Manchester United, Manchester City, and Liverpool, all of them play in the FA Cup. The big boys don't come until much later in the tournament. But just to play, it's like, wow. Like that's what an experience. And most of these guys are going to be accountants and coders and stuff like that. What a cool thing. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. A decade ago, AMAC was founded. Why? Because they looked at ARP, a left-leaning Goliath that it was, and says, where's the alternative? They're like, we are. Like ARP, their membership costs less than $20 a year, but their benefits, well, kids, you're going to make that up 10 times over. When you choose AMAC, supporting an organization that stands for your values, like protecting borders with common sense immigration reform, getting rid of Obamacare and replacing with something better. That's one of the reasons I choose ARP. And here's the other reason, the benefits. Oh, yeah, they're not just an organization that's out there politically advocating on your behalf. No. Travel, retail, restaurant, hotel discounts, competitively priced insurance, roadside assistance, so much more. Here's the great thing they're doing for my listeners, that's you guys out there. A year free. It's on me. All you have to do is sign up. Go to amac.us/Chad. You're going to receive your first year for free. That's amac.us/Chad. There's no cost. There's no tricks. No credit card required. Free membership for 1 year. The benefits of this free membership are worth the time it takes to sign up. Go to amac.us/Chad or call 888-355-1668. That's 888-355-1668 or online at amac.us/Chad. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Got that sniffling, sneezing, stuffy head thing going on? Time for your daily dose of Vitamin Chad.
Now that Special Counsel Mueller has submitted his report to the Attorney General, it's imperative for Mr. Barr to make the full report public and provide its underlying documentation and findings to Congress.
There you go. That's what he has to do. Got to do it. Has to do it. Chuck Schumer there wants it all to come out. Here's the thing. If you know there's nothing in there that, and they don't know, they'll get some of it over the weekend. Barr says he's going to do everything he can to get Congress, the snapshot this weekend. If there's nothing in there, if nothing else, is there something in there that can embarrass him politically? With Trump, I don't think you can. Because he just has to look at his base, and they're going to be like, we won. So I don't know what you're hoping for, but look, I want to know what's in it, right? I absolutely want to know what's in it.
The American people have a right to the truth. The watchword is transparency.
That's the watchword, Phil. The watchword is transparency.
I'm writing it down.
That's a watchword. More from the Chucky.
The president himself has called without qualification for the report to be made public. There is no reason on God's green earth why Attorney General Barr should do any less.
No. Again, unless there's something in there that the public should not see, having nothing to do other than maybe it's top, double, triple secret, or it could potentially embarrass somebody because somebody was caught up in it and they didn't do anything. There was really just more or less an investigation. They maybe found out some stuff that could have been salacious, but nothing that rises to criminality and having anything to do with Russia. So for all intents and purposes, those things need to be taken out. But I'm in 100% agreement with Chuck here. I want to know what's in it. I want to know what's in it. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Let's change it up a little bit, kids, shall we? Let's talk about the craziness at places like CNN and things like that and the wackiness that goes on there. They're salivating, but what are they doing over there? I'm always curious. We've got more on Boeing as well. Text the program 323-538-2423. Thank God it's Friday, kids. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
CNN's approach to covering politics often prioritizes drama and spectacle over serious truth-telling. If you want to understand how CNN covers Trump, you have to understand Jeff Zucker, the network's president since 2013. Zucker came to the network from NBC, where he oversaw shows like Fear Factor and, yes, The Apprentice. His background is entertainment television, and to Zucker, politics is essentially a big game. He told New York Times Magazine, the idea that politics is sport is undeniable, and we understood and approach it that way.
Yeah, that's what they do. That's what they do. The difference is, and it's very interesting what they're going to talk about here a little bit later, in the way that CNN and a lot of these places cover it. And CNN is probably the worst at doing it. So you know what you're going to get on Fox, and you know what you're going to get on MSNBC. Right? The one thing I'll say about Fox, even though I don't watch it much, the stuff I do, they try to bring on somebody at least from the other side to have a debate. Doesn't always go well. But, MSNBC, at least I know that, I can look at Rachel and say she's trying to put together data and facts. She may leave some stuff out here and there, but she's doing some. But outside of that, most of them are unwatchable anyways. But the thing about CNN is they want to be something, and they're not for a reason.
You can see that approach in a lot of how CNN covers politics. Flashy countdown clocks, dramatic graphics, pre- and post-debate panels. It's essentially become the ESPN of politics. But the clearest parallel between CNN and typical sports coverage is the screaming matches. Turn on CNN and you'll almost certainly see an argument between hosts, pundits, and commentators. Turn on CNN's primetime shows and you'll see that same argument between a much bigger panel of people. Speak about politics. That was it. That was it. You don't know what we're yelling about!
That's so true. But the difference is CNN has done some. Here's the thing with at least ESPN when it comes to this is those roundtable things. They try to give you people a little bit different perspective, right? I don't find that on CNN. If there's 5 people, 4.5 of them are going in one direction, right? And then here's the other thing. Who's your personalities, right? If you're going to have people on, you have you make them personalities. That's the one thing that when you look at, like, for me, right, if I was to ask people, you look at Fox, right, I can look at, like, their 5 and the outnumbered and the women that are on there, the men that are on there. Those are personalities. They've built a brand around these people and made them personalities. Where CNN, I can't tell you who half of them are, right, outside, if not, probably more than that. I can't. But you do understand what it is about, right? It's about sucking you into something. It's about that. Zucker has realized that it is entertainment television and it's a business, so we got to get people to watch. Because what we were doing is we were being left behind. When we were a news organization, and we're being left behind anyways, but that's just because we are not good at what we do and we're not entertaining doing it. I don't care if I'm right or I'm wrong. If I'm entertaining, you'll come back. If I'm right and I'm not entertaining, you're not coming back. You're not. They don't do that. Everybody they have on there is bland, is boring. They don't pop. They're not interesting. They're not. They're just like Jeffrey Toobin is so boring, right? He's just so dull. Blech. I can watch Rachel Maddow and go, well, at least she's not dull. Not that I watch any of these shows. I don't. Not now with the NCAA tournament going on. Why would you? But that's a huge problem. That is.
These shows are clear relatives of ESPN shows like First Take, which pit commentators against each other to argue about whatever news story was happening that day.
This is the problem. Hold on. This is the problem.
You can actually see some pretty clear parallels in the formats and studio sets of these shows. This type of news coverage, centered around pundits arguing with each other, makes for cheap, easy TV. It's loud, it's dramatic, and it requires no original reporting.
No. And that's just it. And like I said, I've done a few of these things where what they do is they send you, hey, could you be on a panel today? Sure. Yeah, all right, here's what we're going to be talking about, right? And they'll send you the things they're going to be talking about. So you prep for it. And you don't know where it's going to go. If you're not interesting, who cares? If you're not funny, who cares? If you're not able to articulate a point in 5 to 10 seconds that gets it out there and along the way say a few things that are witty, nobody cares, right? Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, they're big personalities. They're bold. Boom, right? Skip Bayless, big personality. So you can be on these roundtable shows, and if your personality is big, you win. And that's the problem with a lot of these things. And it's the perfect thing with politics right now. Right? That's the big debate right now. Is it policy or personality? Policy or personality? I say it's personality. Because the policymakers behind you are going to be the one that crafts a lot of things. That you have to have some policy. And that's the debate that the left is having. Beto's out there, and his policy is loose at best, and he gives a few answers here and there, but by and large, it's just the, hey, look at me skateboard, I'm charming driving around, hee 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 hee, and other people like Elizabeth Warren, who's not getting the traction, and the reality is the more that she spews policy, the less people care. I don't care. Make me laugh, right? Do something. Make me go, ooh. If you want policy, you watch C-SPAN. If you want entertainment and blood sport, you watch any of these talking head shows.
At its most basic level, political journalism is about keeping viewers informed about how the government is impacting their day-to-day lives. That can't happen when CNN treats every story as a chance to reopen the Thunderdome. When you treat politics like a sport, you're going to end up with news coverage that cares more about watching people score political points than about telling the truth.
Yeah, and with the Mueller report coming out any second, this will be days of fodder. It will be. It'll be days of just being able to talk and try to get your point across, try to guesstimate, try to talk about stuff like that. It is, it's just... But if you're not entertaining, it doesn't matter. And in my business, let me tell you something. I've got some colleagues who've had a bit of a resurgence over the last 2 years because of Trump. The fact is they're not entertaining. The thing they're covering is entertaining, but they're not. And eventually Trump will go away and they'll fade out. And they are fading out now. Are you entertaining? Not only can you make a cogent argument in any of the things that we're talking about, but can you do it in such a way that's going to keep people going, oh, yeah, that guy's funny. That person's funny. She's funny. I like her. I like him. That's a big thing. It really is. And same thing now in this cult of personality. That's the whole debate they're having. Politics is either, it used to be it's all about, hey, this is my point. This is what I'm going to do. Here is my policy. Now it's, here's who I am. Here's what I'm all about. This is my personality. Plus, oh, yeah, and behind me, I've got some policy. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Booing, booing, booing.
The Ethiopians for 5 days have had the data from the black box of the crash, the second crash of a 737 MAX. If there is data that says something is wrong, we need to know, us and the flying public, or why would you want to get onto this aircraft? And they have not released one shred of evidence one way or the other as to whether or not that plane went down in Ethiopia a week ago Sunday because of pilot error, because there's something inherently wrong with this aircraft. Boeing has a software fix for the first crash. Well, what about the second crash? The Ethiopians still have told us nothing.
Yeah, nothing. And I'm the more that I hear, the more that I read, the more that I've talked to people about this, the more that I'm starting to realize that they were overmatched technology-wise. That this was a little bit too much. They didn't get the training they needed. And because of that, what probably could have been a simple fix turned out to be something a lot more, and that they just couldn't, in the pressure situation, that the technology was too much for them. And then you have to ask yourself the question when it comes to this: is it Boeing's fault for the lack of training, or is it the Ethiopian and the Lion Air fault for the lack of training? Is there a parallel? There's definitely a parallel between the two in the crashes, but is it the pilots were undertrained for the software, and they've got to fix?
It's pretty clear in the first crash that even if they'd had these systems, it probably wouldn't have made a difference because they didn't follow the procedures and shut off this system. But with all that stated, Boeing is now adding one of these safety features into its software upgrade, which it will install in all 737 MAXs.
It is kind of scary, though, that they're, I get that you're upgrading along the way because the technology, it's a computer system, but it is weird. It feels like there's microtransactions, like the pilot's flying. It's like, oh, God, I got to buy some more stuff to make sure that we can do this. That is a little bit creepy. But I think we all need to know, if we're getting on airplanes, how safe are these airplanes when it comes to the technology? How much training does the person flying the plane have? I've been very fortunate. Before 9/11, my neighbor flies for Virgin. I was getting ready to retire soon, and when I fly back home from London to California, he'd say, "Hey, Chad, when are you going to go?" And I'd tell him, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you fly with me?" And after we take off, I'd go up into the cockpit, and I'd sit up there. It was awesome. But he would talk about, they've got these books. And they said, we have backups to our backups to our backups to our backups on every single scenario that you can think of. We back up. If something happens here, we know exactly what to do. If something happens here, we know exactly what to do. We know but there's also the point of, it all sounds like, yeah, that's great, but in the pressure situation, right? How do you react as a human being? Are you that person that is like, hey, because I've met some pilots in my time and some people in my time. We used to joke about it, that if like literally the wings fell off, there's a guy's like, yeah, I'm going to get this thing down and we're going to be fine. And there are some people like, as long as it's going great, the wheels on this bus won't come off. But if there's a little wobble, we're done for. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Love hearing from all of you. I try to engage as much as possible, each and every one of you. I can't always do it, but I do try to engage because I think the conversation is good to have, right? That's a good way to engage. That's the Twitter and the Instagram and, and all of those things. Yeah, I try to engage, kids. That's what I do. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Running with scissors sounds great compared to this.
Say what?
American figure skater Mariah Bell accused of deliberately kicking and cutting a fellow skater. A representative for Korean skater En-Soo Lim telling local media Bell intentionally injured Lim's leg with her skate, cutting her calf during warm-ups at the World Championships in Japan. The 16-year-old went on to compete, spotted with a Band-Aid on her calf, even scoring a personal best, placing 5th, just ahead of Bell.
What? Say what? Yeah, we need more of this in figure skating. I mean, can we be honest? It's kind of fun. Yeah. So you had two figure skaters, and it's really weird because apparently they're kind of represented by, like, they have the same management and coach. And so, of course, these are world-class figure skaters, right? Like Phil and I are. We're like super world-class figure skaters. We're like, geez, Chad, you guys are so good at that. I'm like, right, I know. So it's really, first of all, it's uber competitive, right? It's not like pro bowling competitive, but it's pretty darn close. And there's cameras everywhere. So they had to do what? You have to take a look and see, did something really, really happen?
The International Skating Union saying it's seen video of the incident, and at this point, there is no evidence that Miss Bell intended any harm to Miss Lim. Also, neither skater has publicly commented at this point.
Yeah, so she survived. It's just, the plot thickens. It's crazy. It is crazy, right? It's like nuts. Like, I was always competitive. I mean, I was really competitive. And when I'd lose a game when I was younger, I'd be devastated. And I'd be mad at myself, and I would be so infuriated at times, and I'm still competitive. We can't even play like board games at my parents' house, my mom's house, my aunt's house, because it's just nuts. I will say, I never once thought about hurting another opponent to win a sporting event. No matter how competitive I was, I never ever thought of that, and I never wanted to cheat. I always felt like that's a complete disservice to whatever I was doing. Right? And sports, it wouldn't feel like a real victory. It wouldn't. So, oh God. But this is just like, it's super uber competitive. It's super uber competitive. We're going to win. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You tweet at us and there's a little say what thing. Trump, of course, waiting for the Mueller report. All the while this is going on, kids, guess what happened? Yeah, there's an issue going on in the world of the financial side of things, and that issue isn't very good because of what the feds are saying.
Stocks erasing their gains for the week on Friday as investors pulled money out of the stock market and into bonds and other low-risk assets. The shift comes following the Fed's warning this week about slowing foreign economies, weighing down the U.S. economy. All S&P sectors fell, led by basic materials. Dow DuPont fell 3.6%. Industrial goods, financial, and tech stocks also took on losses. The Dow closed down 460 points. The Nasdaq lost 196, and the S&P lost 54.
Yeah. So with when you got stuff like that going on, you gotta understand that we're still a checkbook economy and voters. You put them together. If you're living in your checkbook, you look at the economy, you vote in a certain way, and when you're worried, especially when it comes to investors, you start pulling things, which maybe, just maybe, what happens is it's a trickle-down effect of nerves. Even though there's consumer confidence and we feel okay, investors are looking around and they're starting to hear that we could be expecting, very, very soon a real slowdown in the economy to the point of maybe a recession. And how you judge how good an economy and how strong an economy is how does that look on paper is one thing, but how it reacts, meaning it could be on paper small recession, but the reaction could be awful. Are we going to have a soft landing and then a jump, or are we going to have another one of those hard landings? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. MyPillow is amazing. I've got new Giza sheets. Giza. Incredible. Grown only in a small area in the Mediterranean Sea. Its cotton is super smooth, breathable. Deep pockets. What does that mean? They fit any mattress. It is absolutely incredible. You slide right into them. They are so amazing, and you're going to say, I feel like I'm sleeping on $1 million. And one of the things that drives me crazy is when you lie on the bed and you roll over and the sheets kick up, or when you try to put them on, there's a struggle. You're not going to have any problem with these new sheets from MyPillow. Giza sheets made right here in the USA, 100% machine washable and dryable. Get your Giza sheets today. They're cotton sheets. You're going to love them. 800-983-4975 or go to MyPillow.com. Use promo code Benson. That's MyPillow.com, promo code Benson, or call them 800-983-4975 at Chad Benson Show. Twitter, ChadBenson. It's the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
No one ever said, give it a bit. No one ever said, give it less. We say, give it everything. The world wasn't built by half measures, by the half-hearted. So when we set out to build our boldest SUV ever, we didn't hold anything back. Introducing the all-new Telluride. Kia. Give it everything. Expected spring 2019 in limited quantities.
Ah, the copperhead snake. It hisses before attacking. But that's not a copperhead. That's the Sullivan's RV freshwater tank overflowing into their black one, which is backing into their vent pipe, making for a very different kind of attack. One that arrives just in time for taco night. It's wild out there. When it gets too wild, Progressive has your RV covered. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
CNN's approach to covering politics often prioritizes drama and spectacle over serious truth-telling. If you want to understand how CNN covers Trump, you have to understand Jeff Zucker, the network's president since 2013. Zucker came to the network from NBC, where he oversaw shows like Fear Factor and, yes, The Apprentice. His background is entertainment television, and to Zucker, politics is essentially a big game. He told New York Times Magazine, the idea that politics is sport is undeniable, and we understood and approach it that way.
Yeah, that's what they do. That's what they do. The difference is, and it's very interesting what they're going to talk about here a little bit later, in the way that CNN and a lot of these places cover it. And CNN is probably the worst at doing it. So you know what you're going to get on Fox, and you know what you're going to get on MSNBC. Right? The one thing I'll say about Fox, even though I don't watch it much, the stuff I do, they try to bring on somebody at least from the other side to have a debate. Doesn't always go well. But, MSNBC, at least I know that, I can look at Rachel and say she's trying to put together data and facts. She may leave some stuff out here and there, but she's doing some. But outside of that, most of them are unwatchable anyways. But the thing about CNN is they want to be something, and they're not for a reason.
You can see that approach in a lot of how CNN covers politics. Flashy countdown clocks, dramatic graphics, pre- and post-debate panels. It's essentially become the ESPN of politics. But the clearest parallel between CNN and typical sports coverage is the screaming matches. Turn on CNN and you'll almost certainly see an argument between hosts, pundits, and commentators. Turn on CNN's primetime shows and you'll see that same argument between a much bigger panel of people.
Speak about politics. That was it. That was it. You don't know what we're yelling about.
That's so true. But the difference is CNN has done some. Here's the thing with at least ESPN when it comes to this is those roundtable things. They try to give you people a little bit different perspective, right? I don't find that on CNN. If there's 5 people, 4.5 of them are going in one direction, right? And then here's the other thing. Who's your personalities, right? If you're going to have people on, you have you make them personalities. That's the one thing that when you look at, like, for me, right, if I was to ask people, you look at Fox, right, I can look at, like, their 5 and the outnumbered and the women that are on there, the men that are on there. Those are personalities. They've built a brand around these people and made them personalities. Where CNN, I can't tell you who half of them are, right, outside, if not, probably more than that. I can't. But you do understand what it is about, right? It's about sucking you into something. It's about that. Zucker has realized that it is entertainment television and it's a business, so we got to get people to watch. Because what we were doing is we were being left behind. When we were a news organization, and we're being left behind anyways, but that's just because we are not good at what we do and we're not entertaining doing it. I don't care if I'm right or I'm wrong. If I'm entertaining, you'll come back. If I'm right and I'm not entertaining, you're not coming back. You're not. They don't do that. Everybody they have on there is bland, is boring. They don't pop. They're not interesting. They're not. They're just like Jeffrey Toobin is so boring, right? He's just so dull. Blech. I can watch Rachel Maddow and go, well, at least she's not dull. Not that I watch any of these shows. I don't. Not now with the NCAA tournament going on. Why would you? But that's a huge problem. That is.
These shows are clear relatives of ESPN shows like First Take, which pit commentators against each other to argue about whatever news story was happening that day.
This is the problem. Hold on. This is the problem.
You can actually see some pretty clear parallels in the formats and studio sets of these shows. This type of news coverage centered around pundits arguing with each other makes for cheap, easy TV. It's loud, it's dramatic, and it requires no original reporting.
No. And that's just it. And like I said, I've done a few of these things where what they do is they send you, hey, could you be on a panel today? Sure. Yeah, all right, here's what we're going to be talking about, right? And they'll send you the things they're going to be talking about. So you prep for it. And you don't know where it's going to go. If you're not interesting, who cares? If you're not funny, who cares? If you're not able to articulate a point in 5 to 10 seconds that gets it out there and along the way say a few things that are witty, nobody cares, right? Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, they're big personalities. They're bold. Boom, right? Skip Bayless, big personality. So you can be on these roundtable shows, and if your personality is big, you win. And that's the problem with a lot of these things. And it's the perfect thing with politics right now. Right? That's the big debate right now. Is it policy or personality? Policy or personality? I say it's personality. Because the policymakers behind you are going to be the one that crafts a lot of things. That you have to have some policy. And that's the debate that the left is having. Beto's out there, and his policy is loose at best, and he gives a few answers here and there, but by and large, it's just the, hey, look at me skateboard, I'm charming driving around, he. And other people, like Elizabeth Warren, who's not getting the traction, and the reality is the more that she spews policy, the less people care. I don't care. Make me laugh, right? Do something. Make me go, ooh. If you want policy, you watch C-SPAN. If you want entertainment and blood sport, you watch any of these talking head shows.
At its most basic level, political journalism is about keeping viewers informed about how the government is impacting their day-to-day lives. That can't happen when CNN treats every story as a chance to reopen the Thunderdome. When you treat politics like a sport, you're going to end up with news coverage that cares more about watching people score political points than about telling the truth.
Yeah, and with the Mueller report coming out any second, this will be days of fodder. It will be. It'll be days of just being able to talk and try to get your point across, try to guesstimate, try to talk about stuff like that. It is, it's just... But if you're not entertaining, it doesn't matter. And in my business, let me tell you something. I've got some colleagues who've had a bit of a resurgence over the last 2 years because of Trump. The fact is they're not entertaining. The thing they're covering is entertaining, but they're not. And eventually Trump will go away and they'll fade out. And they are fading out now. Are you entertaining? Not only can you make a cogent argument in any of the things that we're talking about, but can you do it in such a way that's going to keep people going, oh, yeah, that guy's funny. That person's funny. She's funny. I like her. I like him. That's a big thing. It really is. And same thing now in this cult of personality. That's the whole debate they're having. Politics is either, it used to be it's all about, hey, this is my point. This is what I'm going to do. Here is my policy. Now it's, here's who I am. Here's what I'm all about. This is my personality. Plus, oh, yeah, and behind me, I've got some policy. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Booing, booing, booing.
The Ethiopians for 5 days have had the data from the black box of the crash, the second crash of a 737 MAX. If there is data that says something is wrong, we need to know, us and the flying public, or why would you want to get onto this aircraft? And they have not released one shred of evidence one way or the other as to whether or not that plane went down in Ethiopia a week ago Sunday because of pilot error, because there's something inherently wrong with this aircraft. Boeing has a software fix for the first crash. Well, what about the second crash? The Ethiopians still have told us nothing.
Yeah, Nothing. And I'm the more that I hear, the more that I read, the more that I've talked to people about this, the more that I'm starting to realize that they were overmatched technology-wise. That this was a little bit too much. They didn't get the training they needed. And because of that, what probably could have been a simple fix turned out to be something a lot more, and that they just couldn't, in the pressure situation, that the technology was too much for them. And then you have to ask yourself the question when it comes to this: is it Boeing's fault for the lack of training, or is it the Ethiopian and the Lion Air fault for the lack of training? Is there a parallel? There's definitely a parallel between the two in the crashes, but is it the pilots were undertrained for the software and they've got to fix?
It's pretty clear in the first crash that even if they'd had these systems, it probably wouldn't have made a difference because they didn't follow the procedures and shut off this system. But with all that stated, Boeing is now adding one of these safety features into its software upgrade, which it will install in all 737 MAXs.
It is kind of scary, though, that they're, I get that you're upgrading along the way because the technology, it's a computer system, but it is weird. It feels like there's microtransactions, like the pilot's flying. It's like, oh, God, I got to buy some more stuff to make sure that we can do this. That is a little bit creepy. But I think we all need to know, if we're getting on airplanes, how safe are these airplanes when it comes to the technology? How much training does the person flying the plane have? I've been very fortunate. Before 9/11, my neighbor flies for Virgin. I was getting ready to retire soon. And when I fly back home from London to California, he'd say, hey, Chad, when are you going to go? And I'd tell him, and he'd say, hey, why don't you fly with me? And after we take off, I'd go up into the cockpit and I'd sit up there. It was awesome. But he would talk about, they've got these books. And they said, we have backups to our backups to our backups to our backups on every single scenario that you can think of. We back up. If something happens here, we know exactly what to do. If something happens here, we know exactly what to do. We know but there's also the point of, it all sounds like, yeah, that's great, but in the pressure situation, right? How do you react as a human being? Are you that person that is like, hey, because I've met some pilots in my time and some people in my time. We used to joke about it, that if like literally the wings fell off, there's a guy's like, yeah, I'm going to get this thing down and we're going to be fine. And there are some people like, as long as it's going great, the wheels on this bus won't come off. But if there's a little wobble, we're done for. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Love hearing from all of you. I try to engage as much as possible, each and every one of you. I can't always do it, but I do try to engage because I think the conversation is good to have, right? That's a good way to engage. That's the Twitter and the Instagram and, and all of those things. Yeah, I try to engage, kids. That's what I do. Hey, I like meat. I do. I like good meat. No, I like great meat. That's what Butcher Box is. Unbelievable flavor. Unparalleled nutrition. It is incredible. Better tasting, better quality, more nutrient-dense meat is what you get with Butcher Box. No hormones, no antibiotics ever. Humanely raised, ethical process in the way they do things. They only work with the best farms and companies. Grass-fed, grass-finished, organic free-range chicken, wild-caught sockeyed salmon. The best is what I'm saying. You can choose your box. You can customize your box. You put it together, 20 different cuts of meats, and it's affordable. Big time. Less than $6 a meal for the best tasting, highest quality, best cuts of meats. Sign you up, you say? Oh, yeah. Now, here's what they're doing for my listeners. Butcher Box is doing something amazing. Free ground beef for the life of your subscription, and you get $20 off your first box when you sign up at butcherbox.com/Chad. Don't miss out on the special offer. Butcherbox.com/Chad. Butcherbox.com/Chad. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Warning, no snowflake zone. Uninformed opinions are in danger of melting. The Chad Benson Show.
I have no idea about the Mueller report.
You don't? How do you have no idea about the report? You're supposed to know everything, Mr. President. Why don't you know about it? Come on, tell us. We need to know all of these things that you have done.
There was no collusion. There was no obstruction. Everybody knows it.
Does everybody know it? I don't know. I don't care. I don't. It'll come out when it comes out. Like, doesn't. What are we going to find in it anyways? Right? It's if you believe Trump has done something wrong and you just don't like him as a human being, but you believe that somewhere he stole the election from Hillary and the Democrats. If you really believe that, nothing in this report is going to change your mind. Even if Bob Mueller comes out and says, look, I will give my career and my firstborn. I looked everywhere. He's done nothing wrong. Nobody's going to believe that. If you believe that Trump is completely innocent of all of these things, and Bob Mueller comes out and says, I will give my career, my arms, my legs, and my secondborn. I don't even know how many kids he has, if he even has kids. You would not believe that Trump is guilty. So who's this for? It's for both sides to politically go back and forth at each other. That's it. Again, he's not going to jail. I don't know if there's going to be any more indictments. The more that I see that his people are going back to the real world, people that were helping with the investigation, who are now taking jobs elsewhere, the more it signals that this thing is over and done with. So I think at this point in time, it is exactly what it is, and we move on and we wait until he turns it in, and then we wait another umpteen weeks to find out what's in it. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Some of you are tweeting in about, we're just discussing that whole thing with how CNN is trying to, be like ESPN, where you get screaming and yelling. I was talking to producer Phil off the air. I just said, the difference is you watch CNN and you watch ESPN. For all intents and purposes, though, CNN may have 4 people at a round table, but they all believe the same thing. They're just trying to make a different point about the same thing, but it's all about the same thing. Where at least on ESPN or with, Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp is they'll take a different viewpoint. And at times even very contrarian towards one another, where you don't feel that way. And that's one of the reasons it's hard to be entertaining when everybody else feels the exact same way and you want to have some sort of conflict, but the only conflict is they're just shrill and loud. And that conflicts with my sensibility and my hearing. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. Wait till you hear what happened to me last night. Oh, my Lord. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
This is an awful song, isn't it? Kinda. Can you name that tune? Love is in the air. John Paul Young. Number 1 with the bullet. You know where love is not in? It's not in the air of the young people. According to a new study. It's crazy. More than half of young people in America don't have a romantic partner. Survey of a ton. This isn't one like, well, we talked to 9 people. No, hundreds of thousands. Age 18 to 34. 51% of them said they don't have a steady romantic partner. And that is up. That is up from 33% in 2004. Right? So that was 33%, and it's up huge from when they first started doing this in 1986. And it's a lot of reasons why. I mean, the reality is young people we live in a different world now. Women are starting to have babies later if they have children at all. They're saddled with a lot of debt. Marriage isn't what it used to be. They are having careers and travel and choices first. And also, we live in a time of technology, and love isn't something that, is, this whole thought process of finding somebody, falling in love, getting married, and that's kind of out the window, right? A lot of people brought up in this age group are in a situation where they've been with a single parent for a lot of their life, and it's going to be very interesting. And this is one of the things when you talk about stuff, about like when you look at the future of a lot of westernized countries, immigration, both legal and unfortunately illegal immigration, is going to be a huge player in the shaping of some of these countries, because Japan, for instance, they're not having kids. Like, within the next 2 decades, it is going to be a massive problem. They don't have arranged marriages anymore, and they're sheltering themselves into a point where they're not even dating. This would be amazing for the Japanese to have 49% of people have some sort of romantic partner or something like that. That's not even happening that way anymore. Same thing with a lot of the Western cultures out there. They're starting families later if they have children at all. Women are traveling and doing more. Men are traveling and doing more. And they're doing it alone. I mean, we're talking earlier this week about the fact that people are now having solo honeymoons, where they're getting married and they're like, hey, have fun in Hawaii, like have fun in Australia, and they're going off and doing their own thing. So it's a very, we live in a different time. That is absolutely sure. And check this out.
They're true digital natives. Generation Z, those born in the year 2000 or later, have known social media their entire lives. And while it may have broadened their technological horizons, it's made them more lonely or likely to be depressed than any of the older generations. A study in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships says it comes down to screen time. The less in-person social interaction a teen has, the more likely he or she is to be lonely. In 2018, 95% of teens had access to a smartphone, up from 23% in 2011.
Yeah. That it's finding it's not even finding the balance, because something's always going to be like, people say, a work balance life, got to find the work balance life. You're not going to find a work balance life, right? Some people are type A personalities. Work is going to be huge. Doesn't mean they don't care about something, right? Doesn't mean they can't love their family, can't love their friends, some of that stuff, but there's a certain thing. They have a drive, and that's what it is. The work balance life is totally different for everybody, and it's going to be the same thing with technology. Technology is not only going to be a player in your life, it's a player in your everyday. Every one of us in some way, shape, or form is addicted to some form of technology for all intents and purposes. I'll have people text me and say, no, I'm not. And I'm like, okay. So did you skywrite that? And then did you tell somebody to text me? Well, it's different. I need it for work. And this younger generation's growing up with it in a way that it is going to be everything to them. I was talking to somebody they develop for Netflix and like a showrunner. And he was telling my uncle and I the other day that they're now, because kids, they don't want a big TV in their room. They just want their phones, right? That's all they want. That they're developing shows now more for viewing on tablets and phones than they are for a big television. And how do they do that? Is the filming different? Some of the stuff, because that's where it's headed. That is absolutely where it's headed. It's crazy, and so what do you think is going to happen? They're going to be more detached. How do you do that? That's why I think sports is great, because putting kids in sports, not only is the activity that, and in theory, you should be learning how to win and lose and how you deal with those things. But putting children in sports also, if I go back in my life and I look at the relationships I have, minus one or two of them, as far as long-term relationships, all of them were based around athletics and people I've bonded with from the time I was 7, 8, 9, 10, and I still have relationships with them, strong relationships with them. And I think that is something that is huge. And that's why I think every kid should be in the sport, should be doing something, even if they don't so much. It's not about them trying to become a professional athlete or a scholarship. It's just a great thing to learn how to compete, but also the relationship side of things. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at us. Yesterday, that their president did something.
In a few moments, I will be signing an executive order to protect free speech on college campuses. Just the thought of it sounds good.
Yeah, so free speech on college campuses, and he's essentially talked to 12 agencies and said to these agencies, look, there's a lot of grant money we send to these institutes that take public money. If they're going to take public money, they're going to assure that there is free speech on college campuses. People are speaking up about it.
If we're having this robust discussion about protecting free speech, we're talking about discussing all types of free speech and protecting all types of free speech. And I think that part is missing from the conversation right now.
And here's the thing. I don't like the executive order. And it's not about protecting the free speech. Kids on campus, they have the opportunity to speak, right? It's silly the way that they shut stuff down when somebody like Ben Shapiro or Milo or, Ann Coulter or somebody comes on, Jordan Peterson comes on campus, and the professors get upset because they're going to have their fiefdoms essentially, challenged, and somebody's going to be coming into their world that is going to give counterfacts to what the professors have talked about, and they don't want that. But the big issue here, and I think this is what people are missing about this, it's not that you can't talk about certain things. It's the way that things are dealt with. That's the issue I think a lot of people have, right? So if somebody on the left says something that somebody on the right says that's ridiculous, the powers that be say, get over it, person on the right. If somebody on the right says something that somebody on the left says, this is awful, the powers that be says, you're in trouble, person on the right. And that's the big issue with the free speech on college campuses. Yes, the academia is completely liberal and it's ridiculous, and you should be allowed to bring speakers on that challenge, and you shouldn't be afraid to challenge your professors and have them challenge you. That should be the number one thing you do when you're in a lot of these classes, is be able to have a different point of view and give all sides and allow kids to have this kind of situation where their brains are learning and they're taking everything in and giving all sides and letting them make the decision. You shouldn't lead them to the water, right? And then make them drink. No, you should lead them and say, look, the water's over there. I'm going to tell you how to get there in my point of view, but I'm also going to tell you how somebody else would say to get there. And then you go to wherever you want to go to. Whichever well that you think you want to drink out of. That's fine. The problem is, though, if you challenge, and it's when I've talked to a lot of the young kids, and we've got probably 15 interns here, and they'll say, you just keep your mouth shut if you have a different point of view. And that's the fear. The fear is, it's not that free speech is shut down. It's implied if you say something or do something or challenge something, a different norm, or give a different point of view, that you're going to be punished in a way that if you had a left-leaning point of view and you said something that offended somebody on the right side of the aisle, that they're not going to be punished and you would be. And how do you deal with that? That's the issue right there. Because I think kids, there are clubs out there. There's all that stuff happens on campus to a certain extent. But it's inside, it's the climate around there that is what I think is the real issue, and how things are being dealt with. Why is it this person over here says something and so from this oppressed group, this intersectionality of victimhood, feels that this person should be punished, and all of a sudden, because of the whole victim mentality, that they say, oh, yeah, you're right, this person needs to be, there's no due process, they're in trouble, they've got to go. Where on the opposite side, you could say something like, hey, you could be a professor and say, kill the cops, okay, and we should get rid of them all, nothing happens to you. But if you say we should get rid of all lesbians, you're done. And there's the frustration that people have. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Blink is amazing. People are texting in. We want to hear your story. We want to hear your story. I'm going to tell you a story about what happened to me last night. I'm going to get to it. I promise you. You will not want to miss what happened to me at the gym last night. It is just, I've talked to producer Anthony. Even Phil doesn't know what it is. But it is one of those things where I told him, out of like the 10 most awkward things in my life last night, last night is in the top 3. That just kind of, Blink is amazing. Yeah, home security's never been easier, never been cheaper. So incredible. No subscriptions, right? You don't have to worry about subscriptions or contracts, none of that stuff. And you get these amazing wire-free cameras. You set them up in minutes, 2 lithium batteries can last you up to 2 years. And when you're not home, you can monitor what's going on inside of your home. You got the smartphone apps, you get the live feed, but also when you're at home, you can monitor what's happening outside, make sure your house is safe. And sometimes you're traveling and you got packages delivered and you want to make sure that there's no porch pirate stealing them. And if there is one, you catch them in the act. It's great. It's never been easier and cheaper. That's the amazing thing about Blink. Here's what they're doing for you right now. How affordable? Starting at $79.99. Boom. Yeah, that's inexpensive to say the least. Home security got easier and cheaper. Visit blinkprotect.com/sale. That's blinkprotect.com/sale. Blinkprotect.com/sale. Blink is an Amazon company and it works with Alexa. At Chad Benson Show, Twitter, ChadBenson. Oh, the story. It's straight ahead. Chad Benson Show.
Deal this.
Mueller, arrest me.
Chad will trade you 2 perjury charges for 1 collusion and throw in a reduced charge of obstruction for free.
Yeah, I'd do that.
For just listening to The Chad Benson Show.
So last night, I go and work out, right? Crushed it too, man. I was 48 years old, right? I got to be honest with you. I feel pretty decent shape. I work out. I hit the arms, did tons of sit-ups, but I did 2.25 miles in about 23 minutes, and I thought that's pretty darn good. And I had the incline and the whole 9 yards. I rode about 3 miles on the bike, and so I go in and I shower. All right, so I go in and shower. Now, the place I go, it's nice gym. It's got just great facility. And so, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the fact that in the locker room, right, they're screaming, woman coming in. And these 2 women come in, and in the locker room, while people are changing, they're cleaning. So I go take a shower, and it's weird. Normally, there's like 20 people in there, people coming and going. I see people coming out really fast. I was like, wow, it's really quiet. It must be, I come around the corner and next to my locker, there is a man with ginormous boobs. Or there is a woman with ginormous boobs and a penis. Who then engages in all kinds of weird conversation with me. And by the way, on top of that, has lots of Botox. And stares at me the entire time I'm getting dressed I'm getting dressed. It was beyond awkward. It was so, and when you hear there's this girl who's suing because she's upset because a boy is changing in her locker room. And of course people are like, well, she's transphobic or whatever. You know what? I'm a 48-year-old man and it was awkward last night. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't discount who this person is, right? I don't do any of that. It was awkward. I couldn't imagine what a 15-year-old girl or 15-year-old boy would be going through in a situation like this. It was so awkward. It was. And the funny thing is everybody left. Like, everybody left. And when I was walking out, one of the guys looked at me and he's just like shaking his head and stuff because it did feel awkward. And the fact that there's this giant, huge locker room with probably 200 lockers. You're next to mine and you're engaging me in a conversation and you're naked with your tallywhacker and your bosoms. It felt awkward. And you're, sorry, you're a transphobe. No, I'm not. Do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. But I could see how it could be totally awkward for a 15 or 16-year-old who's still coming to grips and terms with their body and, all of this stuff. Yeah, hell yeah, totally. Chad, you're just what? No, I'm not. It was awkward. And I have to be honest with you guys. I'm saying something here, too. I don't know which way she's going. Either way, it's not pretty. Anthony's all, could you tell through the voice? I said, no, because, again, you don't know which way the going is. So and it may be done. Maybe this is it. I don't know. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Somebody texts in and says, Chad, free speech doesn't mean free from consequences. No, you're absolutely right. The problem is it's those consequences. That's what I'm talking about on campus. Conservatives, yeah, they're not totally shut out on college campuses, but they've now self-policed their points of views because they know that if they're giving a point of view that somebody else doesn't like, the other side is going to claim that it's hate speech or that it triggered them and that they should be punished. And if they say something against somebody on the right and somebody on the right complains, that punishment won't be the same as somebody on the right saying something on the left. That one on the right is going to pay a far bigger punishment. That's the frustration that people have. It's doesn't feel fair. So they self-police themselves in a way that where, you know what, we can't get you to stop saying what you're saying, so we'll punish you to the point where you just won't want to say anything anymore. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Speaking of the young generation, useless fact of the day. You ready for this, kids? The newest submarines, the way that they control them now, is an Xbox controller. Think about that for a second. Younger generation, kids, they're here. Have a good rest of your day and weekend. Back to do again on Monday. Night, Jack.
Benson Show.